Two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. Two tails, one head, Yang Yang. Three heads, Old Yang. Three heads, Old Yang. It's a mama and a baby. This bed is too small. It was too firm and too soft, right? No, never too small. Two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. Two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. Our primary hexagram, our bottom trigram will be read as broken, solid, solid, or open, whole, whole. It's either inner or lower trigram. That's right. This trigram is Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants, whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space, each to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Our top trigram or outer trigram will be read, on our primary hexagram will be read as solid, broken, broken, or whole, open, open. This is the trigram. Zen thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. Zen thunder above Xun, wind or wood, gives us Hexagram 32. Once our changing lines change, which are lines 3 and 4, our bottom trigram will transform into broken, solid, broken, which is con, water. Man, my fingers. Con is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. Our top trigram will transform once old yang becomes young yin to broken, broken, broken. Top trigram or outer trigram. This is Kun, earth. Kun is earth, open to receive and support what comes to her, providing for its full development. She makes inspiration manifest, gives it form, and sustains its growth. Earth is available to be used, ready to lend her strength to the work without limit. She protects and accepts all things in their totality, present and potential, in an unconditional embrace. Earth is mother, found in the southwest and the harvest of late summer and early autumn. Kun earth, above Con water, gives us Hexagram 7. We'll be getting the definitions for our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I-ching, written in 1796 while he was a Taoist adept. It's very alchemical, and we will be getting to this commentary towards the end of the reading. Everything has got bookmarks or timestamps, so you can skip around if you feel the need. Hexagram 32, our primary hexagram, is Constancy, single-minded application, perseverance in real practice. And hexagram 7, our supporting hexagram, which the army, using the primordial to repel conditioning, using the real to get rid of the false. When we ask a question of the I-ching and we consult the oracle, the general context of that question is always going to be, how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time? The answer to that question we will be able to understand once we understand how the parts of our reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. So, getting to our primary hexagram in Hilary Barrett's I-ming, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. Hexagram 32, Constancy, she calls lasting. Key questions. What inspiration are you making real in your daily life? How can you continue on the same path even as you adapt? Who will you become by persevering in this? Oracle. Lasting. Creating success. Not a mistake. Constancy bears fruit. Fruitful to have a direction to go. Whatever becomes part of the heart's circling journey will last. We bind things, influences, ideas, people, into the fabric of our lives by integrating them into the daily round of our way of living so that they are carried with us through change. This is an active, creative process, keeping the channels always open for exchange between inspiration and reality. Lasting tirelessly on your own path, whatever landscapes it travels through is not a mistake. What lasts will bear fruit, not because you arrive at some final destination, but because through all the changes you persevere in your intent and inspiration, and you are always finding ways to make it real. Image. Thunder and wind, lasting. A noble one stands firm and does not change his bearings. Thunder and wind are endlessly changeable, but they are part of a larger lasting cycle. The noble one's inner nature, subtle as the wind, translates into action as decisive as thunder. So however the environment changes, everything he does will always travel in the same direction. Sequence. Lasting follows from hexagram 31, influence. The way of husband and wife cannot fail to endure, and so lasting follows. Lasting means enduring. Influence is a traditional hexagram for betrothal, and hexagram 32 for marriage. You are attracted towards something enduring, so influence can be fixed into life like dye into a cloth. Then the lasting patterns of life are infused with vitality. Switch it up a little bit. We'll now go and read our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Our supporting hexagram is 7, the army. Key questions. What are you aiming for? How can you get more from your strengths? With all your efforts, are you creating the life you want? Oracle. The army with constancy. Mature people, good fortune, no mistake. When there is cause, the ruler raises an army. This is a time when everything revolves around a central objective. Inner and outer resources are realigned and ordered in accordance with it. It's important that a mature leader take responsibility, not least so that intensity of focus does not become blinkered vision of pure belligerence, turning everything that is not the goal into the enemy. Balancing the drive to get it done with a measured, disciplined approach allows you to achieve your objective effectively and with less collateral damage. Good fortune, without a mistake. Image. In the center of the earth is a stream, the army. A noble one accepts the people and gathers together crowds. The stream within the earth flows strongly because the earth accepts and absorbs all the water that falls on it. A noble one builds an army with the same open acceptance. You can find your greatest strength in the flow of your whole self by recruiting all your different character traits and hidden underground emotions. Sequence. The army follows from hexagram 6, arguing. Arguing naturally means that crowds rise up, and so the army follows. The army means crowds. First, you react with indignation against the status quo. Then you begin to organize a way to change it. Crowds of people, energies, and resources gather around that original focal point of grievance. The emotions that began as mere reactive indignation become an inner reserve of strength. Pair. The army forms a pair with hexagram 8, seeking union. Seeking union means delight. The army means grieving. The choices of seeking union are made freely, following natural affinity, so the streams flow together over the earth. Those of the army whose work is needed to prepare for seeking union are driven by necessity. The ends must justify the means. When the army marches on its objective, look out for casualties and ruined fields. I'm gonna get this cat back in the house and I will be right back to read our changing lines. I apologize. Sorry. Okay, back to hexagram 32 to read our changing lines 3 and 4. They put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements. They put a pin in the map to say you are here. I just said that. I know I'm missing one, but it doesn't matter. So changing line 3 and 4. Changing line 3 has the general context of an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 4, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. They may not agree with one another. If that's the case, we're to just mull over that and see what that might mean for us. Changing line 3 of hexagram 32, lasting. Not lasting in your character may be accepting a shameful gift. Constancy, shame. Unsure about binding yourself to a personal commitment, with no firm promise to guide your steps, you follow whatever path looks most promising, and doubt and second guess your decisions as circumstances change. Whatever rewards you gain this way will feel shameful, because they are not given to your true self. How could they be, when your true self was never completely present? If you don't fully realize the gift of your own self, anything else you receive is tainted by that failure and cannot be integrated into your path. Carrying on in this way brings humiliation. And changing line 4 of hexagram 32, constancy. In the field, no game. You're hunting, and what you are hunting for is not here. You are in the wrong place. Staying here longer won't change that. You may have a great deal invested in this field, having spent a lot of energy in mapping out a context that should, in principle, yield those much desired results. Nonetheless, there aren't any. This does not mean there is no game anywhere in the world, or that this field is empty of other possibilities. Only that if you want to succeed in your search, you will have to move on into a wider landscape beyond it. We will now move on to James Dekorne, who synthesized several I-ming commentaries and provided his own helpful editor's notes. And I've linked his Gnostic Book of Changes, where he's included all of these online in the description box below. He calls hexagram 32 a primary hexagram consistency. Other titles might be duration, the symbol of constancy, the long enduring, constant, persevering, standing fast, continuity, continuity, constancy in the midst of change, holding firm. A quote from D.F. Hook: "Get yourself into a fixed routine like the orbiting planets." Judgment. Leg. Constancy means successful progress without error through firm correctness. Movement in any direction is advantageous. Ritsima/Karcher. Persevering, growing, without fault. Harvesting trial, harvesting, possessing directed going. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of continuity and endurance. It emphasizes that continuing on and renewing the way you are following is the adequate way to handle the situation. To be in accord with the time, you are told to persevere. The image, leg, thunder over wind, the image of consistency. The superior man stands firm and does not change his method of operation. Wilhelm/Baines, thunder and wind, the image of duration. Thus, the superior man stands firm and does not change his direction. Wu, a combination of thunder and wind forms constancy. Thus, the Junzi, or chief son, or superior person, establishes himself by not changing his post. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Consistency means long continuance. The dynamic trigram of thunder is above, and the magnetic trigram of wind is below. Docility and motive force are in sympathetic communication because their dynamic and magnetic lines all correspond. When the motive power is spent, it will begin again. Hence, movement in any direction is advantageous. The sun and moon are consistent in their illumination, and the 4 sequential seasons are consistent in their cycles of growth. The sages are consistent in their work, and all under heaven are transformed. When we examine this consistent perseverance, the natural tendencies of heaven and earth are revealed. Leg. The subject of the hexagram is perseverance in what is right, or in continuously acting out the law of one's being. It is seen as a sequel to the previous hexagram initiative. As that figure deals with the correct relations between husband and wife, so this figure treats of the continuous observance of their respective duties. Initiative consists of the trigram symbolizing the youngest son and youngest daughter, and shows how the attraction and influence between the sexes is strongest in youth. Consistency, on the other hand, consists of the trigrams symbolizing the oldest son and oldest daughter. This couple is more staid. The wife occupies the lower place, and their relationship is characterized by her submission. Given 2 parties, a magnetic and a dynamic in correlation, if both consistently observe what is correct and natural, i.e., the magnetic submissive and the dynamic firm, then good fortune and progress may be predicted for their course. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. The will to maintain the consistency of the work assures progress in whatever direction it may take. The superior man holds fast to the principles of the work. Wilhelm's title for this hexagram is duration. I feel that the word consistency best evokes the meaning of the figure. In an existence consisting of continuous change, the only things that have duration are the principles upon which change is based. To adhere to these principles is to maintain consistency. Implicit here is a consistent balance of forces. Consistency in the work means neither consistent action nor inaction, but an appropriate combination of the 2 principles as required by changing circumstances. The Confucian commentary alludes to this characteristic of the work when it mentions the sun, moon, and changing seasons as examples of forces which maintain their consistency within a context of continuous change. Just as the moon at night reflects the light of the hidden sun, so in the work, the ego is always magnetic in relation to the dynamic self. A moon that thought it was the source of its light would be egregiously deluded, despite superficial appearances to the contrary. So too, the ego that thinks that its powers come from anywhere but the self. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. Motives and standards of choice are not invented by the ego, but are structured by the actualization of archetypal predispositions through personally acquired value standards. Suggestions for meditation. Note that all of the lines in the hexagram are generally unfavorable except 2 and 5, and that when they both change places, the hexagram becomes number 31, initiative. There's a profound lesson here which is best appreciated by meditating on the associations implied. The fact that each hexagram is the inverse of the other should not be forgotten. We'll now go to our supporting hexagram 7, which James Dekorne calls discipline. Other titles might be the army, the symbol of multitude in the army, legions / leading, the troops, collective force, discipline, soldiers, group action, a disciplined multitude, ego discipline, willpower. A quote from D.F. Hook. Can refer to mourning, but its essential meaning is discipline. Judgment, leg. Discipline indicates that with firm correctness and a leader of age and experience, there will be good fortune and no error. Blowfold. Persistence in a righteous course brings to those in authority good fortune and freedom from error. If the inquiry is not concerned with military affairs, we must interpret this hexagram symbolically in the sense that life is a battle. Lu, the army. The army demands perseverance and a strong person, leader, good fortune, no blame. Ritsuma / Karcher, legions, trial. Respectable people, significant, without fault. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of unorganized crowds or bunches of things. It emphasizes that organizing these things into functional units is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to lead. Slofnacy, the troops. Determination for the superior man is auspicious. There is no trouble. Wu, the army indicates persevering. Led by the elder man, it will be auspicious. The image, leg. Water in the midst of the earth, the image of discipline. The superior man nourishes and educates the people and collects from among them a mighty army. Ritsuma / Karcher, earth center possessing stream, legions. A Junsu, or chief son or superior person, uses tolerating commoners to accumulate crowds. Wu, there is water underneath the ground, this is the army, thus the Junsi receives people and shelters them. Commentary. Confucius / leg. Discipline describes the masses who make up the army, and the firm correctness referred to means a morally correct intent. When the leader uses the masses with such correctness, he may fulfill the ruler's will. The focus of strength in the second line is responded to by his proper correlate in the ruler's place. Although action is dangerous, it accords with the best sentiments of men, and although the leader may distress the country, the people will still follow him. There will be good fortune and no error. Leg. Discipline is symbolized here by the conduct of a military expedition. The arrangement of the lines suggests the idea of a general surrounded by his troops. The dynamic yang line in the center of the lower trigram has the confidence of the magnetic ruler in the 5th place. Entire trust is reposed in him because he is strong and correct. He is referred to as an old and experienced man, hence all of his enterprises will succeed. Perilousness is the attribute of the lower trigram, and docility or accordance with others that of the upper. War is like poison to a country, painful and potentially ruinous, and yet the people will endure it on behalf of the sovereign whom they love and respect. In regard to the image, Chu Hsi says, as the water is not outside the earth, so soldiers are not outside the people. Therefore, if a ruler is able to nourish the people, he can get the multitudes for his armies. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Discipline directed by willpower and serious intent advances the work. Or, with experienced judgment and proper will and intent, there will be a good outcome. The superior man trains and nourishes his powers to build an invincible unity. The English word infantry, meaning foot soldiers, the backbone of any army, is derived from the French word enfant, meaning infant or child. This ancient association was made because a good military officer was expected to treat his soldiers as if they were his own children, with a stern but loving discipline designed to improve their character. This concept is what the image alludes to when it says, "The superior man nourishes and educates the people and collects from among them a mighty army." Psychologically interpreted, the idea is that the ego complex is the general officer in the second line that nourishes, educates, and controls the other complexes within the psyche. This can only be accomplished through discipline, and thus I have chosen that name for the hexagram rather than the more usual title of the army. With the only dynamic line of the hexagram placed in the center of the lower trigram, we have an image of the position of the ego complex in relation to the rest of the psyche. The magnetic ruler in line 5 represents the self, isolated from direct physical involvement and dependent upon the dynamic ego to carry out the work in the material dimension. The 7th hexagram, therefore, shows the work from the ego's point of view. Hexagram number 8, holding together, is the inverse of this image and shows the work from the self's point of view outside of space-time. There, it is the dynamic 5th line ruler who is the focal point, an image of the self surrounded by its satellites. In that dimension, the second line ego complex is only another magnetic complex in the company of other magnetic complexes. Ideally, the lower complexes within the psyche should be magnetic in relation to a dynamic ego, but the ego is always magnetic in relation to the dynamic self, capital Self. From the self's point of view, capital Self, all of its complexes are its magnetic children or infantry. Hexagrams 7 and 8 should be studied together as reversed images to get a full comprehension of each. The images and the lines of discipline all deal with the management of forces as a coordinated whole. As long as they are under the firm command of the ego, who is only a general carrying out the orders of the self, things proceed successfully. If the discipline breaks down and the ego general loses control, defeat is certain. A quote from Yamamoto Tsunetomo in the Book of the Samurai. Naratomi Hyogo said, "What is called winning is defeating one's allies. Defeating one's allies is defeating one's self. And defeating one's self is vigorously overcoming one's own body. It is as though a man were in the midst of 10,000 allies, but not one were following him. If one hasn't previously mastered his mind and body, he will not defeat the enemy." We'll now get back to our primary hexagram 32 and read changing lines 3 and 4. They put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements. And they're the most specific and focused part of the reading. That's the part I always forget. Changing line 3 has the general context of an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done with consistency or constancy. All right. Changing line 3 in hexagram 32, consistency. Leg. The third line dynamic shows one who does not continuously maintain his virtue. There are those who will impute this to him as a disgrace. However firm he may be, there will be ground for regret. Ritsuma/Karcher, not persevering one's actualizing Tao, maybe receivings embarrassing, trial, abashment. Actualized Tao is the ability to follow the course traced out by the ongoing process of the cosmos. It's linked with acquire, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Slothnacy, not making constant his virtue. He perhaps receives its disgrace. Determination is distressful. Cleary 1. If one is not constant in virtue, one may be shamed. Even if right, one is humiliated. Wu. The subject does not persevere in principle. He may feel humiliated for his support. Even though he does nothing wrong, he will be remorseful. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. He does not continuously maintain his virtue. Nowhere will he be borne with. Wilhelm/Baines. He meets with no toleration. Blowfold. Because then no one could endure him. We can bear with an evil man more easily than with one who is liable to behave so inconsistently that we never know what to expect of him. Ritzema/Karcher. Without a place to tolerate indeed. Cleary 2. There is no accommodation. Wu. Consequently, he will not be welcome. Leg. The third line is dynamic in a dynamic place, but is past the center position of the lower trigram. He is too active, and coming under the attraction of his sixth line correlate, he is impelled to abandon his place in virtue. The Konghasi editor's version of the commentary is, nowhere can he bear to remain. Notes and paraphrases. Su. The man does not maintain an inner consistency of character. His vicissitudes lead to troubles from unforeseen quarters. Wing. Your reactions and moods caused by external situations are as unpredictable as these varying circumstances. This inconsistency within the self will bring your humiliation. In turn, this creates a cycle of difficulties. Try to center yourself. Editor. To parody Emerson, a foolish inconsistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. A quote from Gurdjieff. There is nothing worse than to begin work on oneself and then leave it and find oneself between two stools. James Dekorne breaks changing line 3 down into one succinct definition. Inconstancy and vacillation threaten the work. And then changing line 4, leg. The fourth line dynamic shows a field where there is no game. Wilhelm/Baines. No game in the field. Blowfold. No game in the field. Lu. No birds in the field. For a long time one is out of place. How can one get birds? If you receive this line, you should not expect success, even with heightened efforts. Rather, be wary of losing your present position. Ritzema/Karcher. The fields without wild fowl. Slothnacy. In the fields there is no game. Wu. He hunts, but his bag is empty. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Going for long to what is not his proper place, how can he get game? Wilhelm/Baines. When one is forever absent from one's place, how can one find game? Blowfold. How can one who remains long out of place hope to gain his quarry? A reference to the unsuitable position of this line, an example of what is implied, is furnished by people whose talents and interests incline them towards a profession quite different from the one in which they are employed. With the best will in the world, they cannot do justice to themselves. Ritzema/Karcher. No lasting whatever, one's situation. Quietly acquiring the wild fowl indeed. Cleary 2. This is not the place for persistence. How can one catch game? Wu. He has not been in the right place for a long period of time. How can he have bagged any game? Leg. Line 4 is dynamic in a magnetic place, thus suggesting the symbolism. Notes and paraphrases. Su. Perseverance alone does not assure success. No amount of stalking will lead to game in a field that has none. Wing. Be certain your goals are realistic. If you try to achieve things that are unlikely, no matter how vigorously, you will still accomplish absolutely nothing. Perhaps you should reevaluate your desires. Editor. There is sometimes an implication in this line that if you would just sit still, maybe the game would come to you. A quote from Jung in VII, Sermons ad Mortuis. The dead came back from Jerusalem where they did not find what they were seeking. James Dekorne breaks changing line 4 down into 2 possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, you can't find what you seek where it doesn't exist. B, your present course of action is fruitless or your speculation is incorrect. We'll also take from I-ming's Taoist I Ching and read our hexagrams out of there. The first section will have our changing lines in it, and the second will just be commentary that doesn't include the changing lines, but is quite alchemical often and helpful. And hopefully my battery doesn't die right in the middle of it. Okay, changing line, no, hexagram 32, constancy. Constancy is developmental, impeccable. It is beneficial to be correct. It is beneficial to have a place to go. Explanation. Constancy means long persistence. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is thunder, active, and below is wind, penetrating. Acting gently as the breeze, active yet serene. Neither identifying nor detaching, the mind steadfast and the will far-reaching, it is therefore called constancy. This hexagram represents genuine application in real practice. It follows on the previous hexagram, fire. Fire means illumining the inward as well as the outward, aiming at profound attainment of personal realization, so that illumination is all-pervasive. But the path of pervasive illumination is not possible without a constant mind. Constancy means single-mindedly applying the will, the longer the stronger, not becoming lazy and slacking off. Thereby one can comprehend essence in life, so there's a path of development in constancy, and it is also possible to be impeccable thereby. However, though constancy can lead to development and impeccability, it is only beneficial if constancy is correct. If it is not correct, abandoning the real and entering into the false, then it is not developmental and is faulty. The blind practitioners in the world who go into deviant paths, taking what is wrong to be right, aggrandizing themselves, boasting of their practices and cultivating vain reputations, striving all their lives without ever awakening, most assuredly are capable of constancy, but they are constant in aberrated paths, not constant in the right path. If you want to seek eternal life in this way, you will on the contrary hasten death. When your time is up, you will have no way out and cannot escape the blame. How could you gain good fortune? Therefore, constancy in the developmental, impeccable way is only brought to fruition by correctness. Even so, the benefit of correctness of constancy is preeminently the benefit in correctness of constant practice. So the text says, it is beneficial to have a place to go. The benefit lies only in constant practice of what is correct. What is correct is true principle, which is the Tao of body and mind, essence and life. This path appropriates yin and yang, takes over creation, sheds birth and death, escapes compulsive routine. This is a great work involving constancy and persistence. It cannot be accomplished in a day and a night. It requires flexible, gentle, gradual advance, ascending from low to high, going from shallow to deep, step by step, treading in the realm of reality. Only then can one be effective. Generally speaking, a great affair which endures long unchanging requires great work that endures long unceasing before it can be achieved. The constancy that is beneficial if correct is the constancy that is beneficial if it is going somewhere. But if you want to practice what is right, first you must know what is right. Investigating truth, reaching the basis of essence, thereby arriving at the universal order. The work of comprehending essence and arriving at the universal order of life is all a matter of thoroughly penetrating truth. We'll now go to hexagram 7, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. The army. For the leader of the army to be right, a mature person is good. Then there is no error. Explanation. The army is a group. This has the meaning of one person leading a group. The qualities of the hexagram are earth above, submissive, and water below, dangerous. Following obediently in danger, it is therefore called the army. This hexagram represents using yang to drive back yin. It follows on the previous hexagram, waiting. Waiting is advancing yang in accord with the time, and advancing yang is the way to drive yin back. The method of repelling yin is to get rid of wrong by means of right, to destroy falsehood by truth, like righteousness in the leader of an army. The leader of the army is the way of punishment and execution. It requires both firmness and flexibility, both humanity and justice, command of authority and ability to change in order to be effective. Otherwise, if one can be firm but not flexible, or if one is only humane and does not know how to apply justice, or if one is only dutiful and does not know how to act humanely, none of this is right. And without correctness, good fortune cannot be attained. Instead, one will provoke censure. Only mature and developed people understand good and bad, distinguish wrong from right, know what bodes well and what bodes ill, perceive when to hurry and when to relax, are not confined to either firmness or flexibility, apply both humanity and justice together, are able to obey in danger and by obedience neutralize danger, use the temporal to restore the primordial, use the primordial to transmute the temporal. Not only do not let yin trap yang, but even get all yin to follow yang. This is the path of good fortune without error. If people are immature, their perception of truth is not clear. They do not distinguish wrong from right, and so enter aberrated detours. They set out impulsively and not only are unable to make yin retreat, they even accentuate yin. They are sure to bring on error. How can they effect good results and achieve the Tao? When people have not yet lost the primordial, this is pure natural reality. It is like when the nation is at peace. Even if there are intelligent knights and good generals, there is no need of them. Then, when people get mixed up in acquired conditioning, their senses trouble them and their emotions run wild. It is like when there is trouble in the land, with rebels causing disturbance. If there is no way of rooting them out by punishment and execution, it is impossible to restore peace in perilous times. Therefore, the method of striving in spiritual alchemy is to burn away all the pollution of acquired conditioning, and not let the slightest flaw remain in the heart, so that one may eventually re-experience original completeness. This is why the path of direction is valued. We'll go back and read our changing lines 3 and 4, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused point of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context of an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 4 has the general context of the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Our primary hexagram 32, we will read changing lines 3 and 4. And then we will get a chapter or so from the Tao Te Ching to finish things off. Changing line 3 of hexagram 32, Constancy. If one is not constant in virtue, one may be shamed. Even if right, one is humiliated. Explanation. As long as one is strong and remains correct, one is still determined in practice of the Tao. But if strength is not balanced and one is in a hurry to achieve attainment, advancing keenly yet regressing rapidly, this is not being constant in virtue and so being shamed. What is the shame about? It is the shame of setting the heart on virtue but not being able to be constant in virtue, setting the will on what is right yet being unable to constantly practice what is right. Following the path in practice, yet giving up along the way. Even though one be correctly oriented, one is humiliated. This is constancy with a beginning but no end. And then changing line 4, fields, no game. Explanation. When strength is in the body of action, the time is for doing. This is like having fields to plow. If one then dwells in a position of weakness, the will inactive, constantly embracing the Tao but unable to put it into practice, that is like empty fields with no game to watch for. This is constancy without any action. All right, time to sum things up whilst drawing a card for a chapter of the Tao Te Ching. So our primary hexagram 32, Constancy, has to do with remaining on a steadfast course with the will set on the Tao. And then in our supporting hexagram, the army, has to do with the second line is that of pretty much like the ego, and it is being employed by the self in that hexagram. It's the only dynamic line. All of the others are magnetic or yin, and the ruler trusts the ego like a general. So in essence, there is the idea that to get all of the fractured or component parts of the psyche to follow one direction, it's good to set that direction on something useful such as the Tao. With our changing lines, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, they take the precedence over all of the other elements. Changing line 3 showed that there was too much vicissitude or change in the querent. And so even though they were steadfast in the direction of the Tao, because of wavering in even having the direction set, but in the virtue, I suppose is what it says, it means that they have taken their eyes off of the self and put it on other things, and it is not advantageous. In the fourth changing line, it had to do with chapter 45. What did it say? It said, give me just a brief moment, I got a refresher. There may not be game in the field that we're waiting in, and we could be applying all the action in the world, but if we're not in the area that we should be, maybe it's time to move to a greater area, something like that. So we'll be getting our reading from the Tao Te Ching from the translation by G.F. Hufang and Jane English, which I like. Chapter 45 of the Tao Te Ching. Great accomplishment seems imperfect, yet it does not outlive its usefulness. Great fullness seems empty, yet it cannot be exhausted. Great straightness seems twisted. Great intelligence seems stupid. Great eloquence seems awkward. Movement overcomes cold. Stillness overcomes heat. Stillness and tranquility set things in order in the universe. Harder to do this when your fingers are so cold. Love you.